Welcome everyone, and today we are going to talk about the Dynamax and Gigantamax tier list for December 15th, 2024. Alright, this is going to encompass all of the Dynamax and Gigantamaxes currently in Pokemon Go. So let's start with the first one, Charizard. So Charizard has increased damage from rock, and then electric and water, and takes reduced damage from fairy, fighting, fire, ground, seal, and double resist to bug and grass. With G-Max wildfire and still good attack and decent stamina, this is definitely going to be our top fire damage deal unit in S, and Charizard's still an A for Dynamax for overall usefulness. It's getting closer to falling off. I do expect to see a bit more, but right now, Charizard is still the best fire unit right now. Alright, next is Venusaur. Venusaur is weak against fire, flying, ice, and psychic, and resists electric, fairy, fighting, water, and has double resistant grass. Grass is its main attack in the Gigantamax. It has other uses as well. Overall, its stats are pretty meddling, but because of its overall average amount, it's below Charizard, but still a top tier S unit. And for a B unit, I would say that this is going to be a strong B, but at this point, there's enough issues and just the stats overall that I'm ranking it a B. And yes, this is definitely going to start getting dominated by mostly Gigantamaxes, but there's still some Dynamaxes that will show their true strengths very soon. Finally, at the beginning types, we have Blastoise. It is weak against only electric and grass, but it's strong for only fire, ice, steel, and water. It has attack at 171, okay defense at 207, and its stamina is average. And with its G-Max Cannonade for water, I still put Blastoise only in the A category. It is still going to be the main unit for G-Max, especially for the attack that you're going to do for water type. But all in all, I'm downgrading it from an S to an A. And Blastoise itself is actually down to a C, just because it is just everything. And with it being so average, when you're the master of no trades and just a jack of all trades and a master of none, you really don't have a great spot in a lot of these lists. If you're really looking to min-max, and Blastoise just can never really. Gengar, our favorite ghost, is weak to dark, ghost, ground, and psychic, and is strong against fairy and grass. Double resist bug, normal, poison, and triple resist fighting. With that triple resist and its massive attack with Ghost, even though generally they tend to be weak against each other, because it has such a high attack that even when it's neutral against it, neutral will give you some good damage overall. And with its high amount of resistance and a triple resist, it is still solidly in the S class. Still will be using my Charizard more than my Gengar, but the Gengar itself is still top tier overall. And I have the Dynamax Gengar as an A, mostly because with it resisting so many types of damage, even though it is really a glass cannon, it still can take a little bit of damage overall, and it can dish it out pretty well as well. Alright, we have Double. Double is increased damage from fighting, decreased damage from Ghost. It's a pretty strong double against Ghost. It can learn Tackle, Normal, and Double Kick for fighting. Its defense is decent at 200, but the rest of its stats are poor. No surprise here, D tier. Moving on, Greedent. Fighting, it takes increased damage of, and Ghost takes double decrease. Greedent is interesting. It has 4 different types. It can actually move around. Bullet Seed, Bite, Tackle, and Mudshot. So it can do Grass, Dark, Neutral, or Normal, and Rock. But its CP The attack and defense are low. The stamina, though, at 260 does make it an interesting healer. It has its own niche, which did just get knocked off from being the highest. I now put it in the D tier, but I'm kind of debating whether or not to upgrade it to C. It is a very close D tier, and with that, it still has its uses as a budget. Kind of do a little bit more talking about this within the next month on why Greedent can actually still be a very good unit for your team. Moving on next, though, is Cinderace. Cinderace takes increased damage from ground, rock, and water. Cinderace takes reduced damage from bug, fairy, fire, grass, ice, and steel. Cinderace does have a much better attack at 238 than Charizard, but still at 190. Neutral and fire are its two types that it can use for its attack. I have it rated, but in fairness, I have used it instead of Charizard once or twice. But if you have Gmax Charizard, you're going to be using that almost instead. But overall, it's still a very good unit, and if you don't have a Dynamax, then you should probably try and get one. Intellion is second highest attack now. Electric Gas takes reduced damage from fire, ice, steel, and water. Attacks with Water Gun and Pound, so it can do two different types of Dynamax move. Attack, at defense, and a stamina. My big issue with Intellion is that it is just too weak to be defense, to really take any type of damage, even if it takes reduced damage from safe. And a fire attack with that 142 defense, it still takes a healthy amount of damage, and its stamina is also pretty low, so it just can't really absorb any of those damages. I have it in the B tier. It's a very high B tier, but it is also much higher than the Dynamax Blastoise, because at least it has a use as an attacker. And with that, I do say that we have relatively weak, or we had relatively weak water units, but at this point we do get Kingler soon. Relab Boom is a interesting unit. Takes increased damage from bug, fire, flying, ice, and poison. Relab Boom takes reduced damage from electric, grass, ground, and water. Overall CP is pretty high. It has a good attack and stamina with the defense. It does not heal as much as Greedent does, but this is the unit that I usually bring in, or I was bringing in before Lapras, that if I needed heals, Relab Boom was going to be my healer. Healers' only stat that means anything is their HP or stamina, and since Relab Boom has it in spades, it was the most use. And yes, I know that I'm talking about 2 to 3 HP, but that is a huge difference if you're doing a healing dynamic, and those strategies require the maximum amount of healing to go through to make it actually worthwhile. And with that, Relab Boom does have enough to be in the top 3 right now of being able to use for healing. And on top of it, if you only need to use it once or twice, its attack is high enough where it will do some pretty good damage. Yes, it only has really grass and normal attacks, but at the very least, one of those two should be able to deal neutral damage at least, what you're looking for. And because of that, I have it at a very high A tier, and this is going to be one of the more interesting units that I know that some people will kind of go, but Matt, they really shouldn't be here, but I do put them there, and that's where I put them. Next is Metagross. Metagross so far has been basically the main unit that I have been using. It's a great tank unit, has good attack. Overall, the best Dynamax unit I feel in the game, and there's a very close second. But for me, Metagross has been the unit that I have relied on, especially early on in the Dynamax and Gigantamax system. It does take increased damage from Dark, Fire, Ghost, and Ground, but interestingly enough, I still use Metagross against Gengar because of its ability to use Psychic. Metagross takes reduced damage from Dragon, Fairy, Flying, Grass, Ice, Normal, Rock, and Steel. And that's just, it is double resistant at 39% to also Poison and Psychic. Metagross was one of the main tanks for Toxtricity, is generally a main tank for anything that I have. It also has two more unique different types of Dynamax attacks at Psychic and Steel, which gives you a pretty good range on being able to get at least one of those Dynamax attacks that will stick. It has a very large attack at 257 and a defense of 228. Very solid overall. Its stamina at 190 is its only weakness, and it's not even that weak, it's just average. Obviously, it is in high S tier. Next, we go from one of the most useful units to one of the most frustrating units overall, Finks. Finks has increased damage from Fairy, Flying, and Psychic, and takes reduced damage from Bug, Dark, and Rock. It was the only fighting unit until we got Machamp. Obviously, Machamp is rated much higher. Its attack is slightly below average, with its defense and stamina being very below average. I think the stamina is the lowest in the Dynamax series, but I could be wrong, and if I am, you can put in the comments which one is lower. And with that, I put it slightly above Greedent, but honestly, that might be a little too high, and next month it's probably moving down into the D territory. Next is Excadrill. Excadrill is, honestly, in my mind, the second best Dynamax unit in the game, just behind Metagross. Its Metal Claw for Steel and Mudslap for Ground is incredibly useful for. It has takes increased damage from Fighting, Fire, Ground, and Water, but it has a massive amount of reduced damage. Normal resistance is Bug, Dragon, Fairy, Flying, Normal, Psychic, Steel. Has Electric Rock as double and Poison as a triple. Its attack is incredible. Its defense, though, is poor. But the thing that kind of stands out for me is its stamina. It is a great, almost as good as Greedent. It was slightly better, but its attack is incredibly high. So it is definitely a unit that you can have as even a healer. And if everybody heals once and you're done and you need to attack, it will still give a very solid attack on top of it. And if you just plug it in you have another tank and you plug it in, it will be able to act as both your main attacker and healer, which is great to give you two tanks. So overall, I think this unit is great for these battles. Obviously, I am giving it a very solid S tier. Next is Toxtricity. This is our only Gmax stun, so our only Gmax in Electric. Takes double damage from Ground and increased damage from Psychic. The reduced damage is Bug, Electric, Fairy, Fighting, Flying, Grass, Poison, and CP is a little low. And the main issue is its attack is good, but its defense is as poor, or actually I think Intellion. So it is actually worse in defense than Intellion, and its HP stamina is at 181, so it's only slightly higher than Intellion. And it falls into the same issue that Intellion has. Yes, it can be an attack unit only, especially with it being electric for the Gmax. And it does have the Gmax form, but unfortunately its Dynamax form is still struggling with the Intellion. And with that, you can see that I have it rated slightly below Intellion for B, and I have it in an A tier for its Gigantamax. Next is our new unit, Kingler, which is now the highest attacking water unit in the for Dynamax, at least right now. It takes increased damage from Electric and Grass, and Kingler takes reduced damage from Fire, Ice, Steel, Water. It has 3 different types of attack, which also gives it more flexibility than Intellion. And to me, right now, you're only going to be using Intellion for its normal attack, which I think you could choose slightly better normal attacks. Kingler does have a ground attack that does require an elite fast attack with Mudshot. It does have Steel with Metal Claw and Water with Bubble. Overall, though, the only thing that you're really going to be using Kingler, if you have one of each unit, is going to be for the Bubble. And with that, I do have it rated just above Intellion on the low end of A tier. Now we have Crano, and it takes increased damage from fighting, fire, rock, and steel, and it only takes reduced damage from ice. Its only fast attack is going to be ice, so you're going to be using ice finishing. And it has a decent stats at 190 attack, 218 defense, which is actually pretty high, and 190 stamina. I have it put in B tier, mostly because there is only one unit really that you're going to be using for an ice attack. That unit is Lapras. Lapras is, for at least for the Gmax, the Dynamax is worse than Crano, but Lapras takes increased damage from electric, fighting, grass, and rock, and it takes decreased damage in water and double resist to ice. Its attack is 165 and its defense is 174. They are below average, but not super poor. The one thing, though, Lapras does have is a massive amount of HP or stamina. Lapras now is our best healer in the game. It used to be, believe it or not, Greedent. Now Lapras is the best healer for the Dynamax, Gigantamax, and I believe it's going to be the healer for quite a while. And with that, it is going to have big uses for healing, for tanking ice, and personally, I think it's also going to be the big one that tanks water, at least for now. I think that water, though, will fall through in a couple months. And then its ice attack is going to be the best. So I finally have it at S tier, but the S tier is more for overall the healing capability of it, not its attacking, but it's still an S tier for me because of its massive HP. And it's just a top tier heal that has good bulk for ability to absorb some damage if you desperately need it. But at the very least, this is going to be the unit that we're going to be using for healing. I did not put the tier in for the Dynamax Lapras, and I do have it above Crano in the B territory, right between Intellion and Venusaur. But all in all, if you do not have a Gigantamax Lapras, and instead you do need to attack, then you are going to use Crano. With that, that is my overall list. This list here is pretty subjective. I don't have this as an attacking list. I have this as a usefulness list. There will be some units that from the B tier and even the C tier with I could see Blastoise being used once or twice. D tier, though, is definitely not going to be used unless desperate. Greedent is basically a desperate healer and a sneaky tank if needed, but only sneaky is if you can actually have it get attacked with dark. With that, that's all I've got. Love to hear your thoughts, and as always, please like and subscribe, and I will try to do better next time. Thank you. Last but not least is Machamp. Somehow it got dropped off the list, but here we go. Machamp takes increased damage from Fairy, Flying, and Psychic. Takes reduced damage from only Bug, Dark, and Rock. Has two different types of attacks, Fighting and Steel, but you're going to be using him primarily for Fighting. CP, though, is 3455 with a very good attack at 234, a slightly below average defense in 159, and pretty good stamina overall, which actually makes him a decent healer as well. Not as good as some of the highest tiers, but still a very good healer. From that, we have a very good attacker and a very good healer, which does make it a very, very good Dynamax overall, especially for fighting. And so I put Machamp over in the low S tier, where I think he will stay for quite a while. I expect a few others to bounce off the S tier, but Machamp to stay up Unless if we get a surprising unit or two coming our way sooner than I kind of originally planned. With that, I do apologize once again. I will do better next time. Peace out, everyone.